I think right now this is the most pivotal time in American history and the course of humanity on how we're going to solve this housing crisis. And I think what you're looking at is you're looking at two choices or three choices. The first choice is to listen to the liberals and give in and no evictions and let the government decide when they can start charging rent again. The third one is to continue the predatory process. And then there's actually having a renegotiation of the rent and getting rid of the mortgages once and for all and have housing be done by cash. Because if we keep the predatory market going, it's inevitably going to lead to the Marxist model where the state takes over the property. And if we continue right now to say, oh, Cuomo's got to be the one to give us permission whether we're going to charge rent or not, what that effectively does is lets the government take over property, and you're looking at NYCHA for all. So if Americans can move on their feet and say, like, listen, we can't afford this. I don't know what we can afford right now, but I'm not signing. My landlord wants me to re-sign my lease for almost $2,000. I'm not signing a lease for that. I mean, we have to start negotiating our rent and getting rid of mortgage companies, and I think we're going to be all right.
Well, that sounds like a New York-centric issue. But if I have it right, you're still in the race for president, right?
How is being stuck in a mortgage from before the 2008 crisis, and this mortgage is costing you $1,800 a month, and you got to pay it off for another 20 years? This can happen all across America.
No, I know. I was referring to the part where you're talking about Cuomo enacted some rent rules here just in New York State. I didn't know if
Cuomo's
that
actually
applied
not. He's
everywhere.
being aggressive on a couple issues. I don't really want to say that, but he's actually not imposing the rent, and I think that's a smart thing. I think not imposing a delay on rent is going to force the landlords to be like, okay, what can you pay? Okay, are you willing to get in a lease at that? Or some tenants to say, yeah, listen, I'll give you another 120,000 over the next 5 years for this property, but I'm going to want some equity in it too. Um, I think that's why I'm getting back in. Is we need to save the housing model. We need to save private property. If we don't, it's all going to become part of the government, and we're going to be screwed.
All right, so Danny, then what do you make about your new stated opponent? Now it looks like Joe Biden's the presumptive nominee, Donald Trump, but Biden just picked up, the whole Obama apparatus behind him now. It probably makes the race a little tougher for you.
Yeah, I mean, the race is a little tougher. Yeah, and Larry Sharp and Jim Gray are going to be trying to take the libertarian ticket, right? The thing is all these people are sucked in on money, and we need to start fighting for the right stuff. We need to start fighting for like what they're doing in Michigan is beautiful, beautiful. They're finally taking the streets. And how could you not, after what happened in Flint, and after last week she imposed it's illegal to buy seeds. It's illegal to buy seeds. This is unconscionable that it's illegal to buy seeds. What do you think of that?
I mean, all of the founding fathers were farmers, agriculturists in some way or another. Imagine they ever heard there was some interpretation of a state constitution that said people would be prohibited from buying seeds. It sounds like a founding principle, food.
I think it's the seventh plank of communism to control all the agriculture too. The first plank is to control all the housing. The sixth plank is to have a central bank. Listen, we're looking at some real big problems here, and we need to start aggressively getting some ideas out there quick. What happened with the stimulus package was the most ridiculous thing. For them to have organized $6 trillion and have Congress all to agree on it all at once, how is that not pre-planned?
It's crazy. I mean, you have a Congress who's in gridlock for years, and then when push comes to shove, within a week and a half, they found $6 trillion. And then one of the things that I think you should hammer on is, isn't it funny that we needed to bail out small businesses? We need to help sole proprietors, gig economy, all this other stuff. $6 trillion with a T, 350 billion for small businesses and sole proprietors and stuff. Not a big hunk if you think about it.
Not a big hunk, and Trump is trying to unleash as much cash flow as he possibly can. But you gotta look at who's really in control here, or who our enemy is, and it's people like Julia Salazar. I wouldn't say Jumaane Williams is our enemy, but when he's talking about licensing for landlords, we're looking at real sophistication. And Julia Salazar says that New York State is going to take over the gig economy. So where Lyft owns City Bike, she's like, well, why doesn't the city just own City Bike and have the city make money? And they're looking at that with the internet grid, and they're looking at that with the whole entire gig economy. And this is something like basically the communists and the Green New Dealers, these people are really like living a war, and they've been kicking our butts for the last 200 years, basically. And we need to wake up to this.
No doubt about it. So I would think when you're an underdog in a race like this, as much as you want to be out there spreading your message, it's not the worst thing to have, the leading candidates locked up in their houses too. Nobody could really get to the masses right now. Is this going to hurt Joe Biden, you think, in the long run?
It's going to help Joe Biden in the long run. It's the only chance Joe Biden has. Can I ask you a crazy question? Can I ask you a crazy question? Can I go there right now?
You've asked me many, and I've never said no.
Frankie Collie. When Frankie Collie got killed by Anthony Camello, the NYPD went into that house and did an investigation because the murder was at his house. All of a sudden, Giuliani goes to the Ukraine. Commissioner O'Neill resigns right when they start the impeachment. How much stuff on Hunter Biden and John Kerry's son and Bolger's nephew, how much stuff was found at Frankie Collie's house?
I have no idea. Tell me more.
I don't know. It just seems like a perfect storm. Like this kid Q, this kid was a Q kid, Anthony Camello. Props to Anthony Camello. He went to try to citizens arrest Mayor de Blasio. Then next thing you know, he shows up to Frankie Collie's house, the guy who's in charge of international crime. Are you kidding me? Supposedly he wants to go out with his niece. He whacks him in his front yard. NYPD does an investigation right there. Bam. All of a sudden, Giuliani's taken off to the Ukraine. And they dig that whole thing up. And the whole thing with Biden is nothing but a whole crime syndicate that they're doing every little thing to cover their tracks. Because they don't want to get caught.
You think the big story that we're going to get out of this at some point, Trump's got the bombshell that Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, John Kerry, a bunch of them were running an international crime syndicate using Ukraine as one of their pawns.
Yeah, and the Saudis too.
So the Saudis are in on it with Biden, you think?
And the mafia, yeah. You got to think, the mafia controls Wall Street because they control the hedge funds of every single frickin' union in the whole entire country. And if they're not the Italian mafia, it's still a crime syndicate. The guys that control the hedge funds of all the unions. Come on.
I'm not aware of this, but I like the way you're thinking.
This is what happened. This is what happened. Anthony Camello, he sniffed in the winds for a rat. He found a rat, went and killed him, and it opened up the whole entire investigation. And the more and more I look into it, the pieces keep falling together, and it's like it's worth looking into it yourself.
All right, so you're a subscriber to the whole QAnon culture community.
Actually, no. But when this kid kills the head of the mafia in his front yard and writes a Q on his hand and shows it in the courtroom, and it's only a blurb in the newspapers by the media, Ah, that just seemed interesting to me. And
Must have
then
been something
when
there.
you saw, like, no mobster kills a fellow mobster at their house, it opens up a crime scene at their house and they can get caught too. You don't do that. Okay. This kid got him there. Okay. And then the NYPD went nuts. Giuliani himself was the one who went into Eastern Europe to investigate.
Wow. So somehow you think that particular crime um, was part of a plan to get into uh, to infiltrate a mafia leader and
Yeah.
get the information out of his house.
Yeah, absolutely. And then look, right when they open up the impeachment, why did Commissioner O'Neill resign? Why? There's no real problems. But if you look at it, it was like 5 days after they opened the impeachment. Boom. He needed to get out and he's running that investigation. You don't go from being NYPD commissioner with a squeaky clean record to doing nothing the next day. It doesn't happen.
Well, maybe he had enough.
I don't listen, I'm speaking for someone and I'm speculating, but yeah. I don't know, man. Would you get tested for antibodies?
Would I? Of course I would. Should I?
You would, huh? I don't know, bro. What do they need antibodies for? What do we need that test for? To prove to who?
No, I think I think I thought they were saying that if you had it and you were cured and they take your antibodies, then they could use the plasma to create an antidote or something like that. I would do it to help someone else.
Uh, oof, I think I think in the Bible it says not to mess with blood for a reason. Because they also talked about the mark of the beast here, man. I don't know, dude. I really think it's really stupid to give them your DNA. I mean, we could give them zinc and hydroxychloroquine all we want. We don't have to give people our DNA and prove. Like, are you allowed to go into a sex club with HIV?
I guess. Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah. I'm not going to be allowed to get on the subway with coronavirus, something that everyone's going to have in the next year or two anyway.
Right, we're all going to have it. They said 80% of the people will at some point get it, but it'll be less and less transmittive and deadly because we'll build up antigens, right?
Yeah, and we'll do it the old-fashioned way. And we don't need to give we don't need to be giving the government our plasma and them giving us permission. And there's a couple things I need to point out about Cuomo. CBS News reported on it. I have the clip and I have to bring it up. I will. They even said a staggering $80 billion was spent on facial recognition cameras in New York State throughout the whole entire thruway system. Cuomo gave a speech on how these cameras can see your ears. They can see your ears because people know to cover their face everywhere, all over the city. Okay. Cuomo also, back in November, I don't know the name of the law, signed into law that if you commit a crime in New York State and it could still be punished by New York State, the federal government cannot pardon you for that crime.
Right.
Like we should have, like that was waging civil war, and the media didn't even pick up on that one. Remember that?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I mean, how do you think the president is doing right now? You think he's being led by these vaccine hawks?
Listen, do you know how the president is doing right now? You know the end of Scarface when he's getting shot up.
Yep.
He's sitting there.
Yep.
He's like Scarface with a bulletproof vest on, a couple grenade launchers, and I really think what he needs to do to take control of the world and put everyone on notice. Oh, Maduro just got an arrest permit for narcotics too, because they found that through Frankie Collin. Telling you. But whatchamacallit, Trump needs to take over the Panama Canal, like ASAP. ASAP.
Would
He
that
needs
be
to
a
just
big? Would that be a strong point for us?
he needs to get Brazil to help us. He needs to get a couple other navies to help us, and we need to get the Chinese out of the Panama Canal first and foremost. And I think right now is the only time we have a legit stance in saying,
Wow. I think they effectively own the Panama Canal.
uh, you know,
They put
that's
a
why
lot of
they have.
money into Panama and infrastructure that basically gives them, a free port of entry all the time there because they built a lot of the infrastructure around it with all kinds of bogus loans, which are really payoffs to make sure that we can never shut off the Panama Canal to them.
And you know what these guys did? I used to live in St. Lucia. So in St. Lucia, they had a brand new hospital and a brand new school and a new highway in exchange for their oil rights. They built them a hospital, a road, and a school.
Right.
And they're doing that all over the world.
Yeah, China's been going around the Caribbean for the last 20 years doing deals where they take some forward interest in their minerals and resources and leasebacks on land and building airports, roads, and hospitals, schools, and shipping ports like nobody's business. And they get all these, they basically put their 5G in there. Then it's a whole to
And,
me penetration strategy.
and the real question with the Caribbean is why isn't Puerto Rico doing that? Why that Puerto Rico is practically a state in the Caribbean, a beautiful state. Why aren't Americans, Puerto Ricans, looking at the Caribbean going, yo, screw Louisiana, screw Houston. We're Puerto Rico, man. We're going to be the most resource rich island on the planet. And instead, they're sitting back and they're letting China do it. And they're letting socialism be the power, basically everything south of Texas, everything south of Florida. And that's probably the main reason why we need to go to war with China and get them out of the Panama Canal. Because if World War III were to break, the first thing we would do is need to cut off the Panama Canal, and then we would need to take South America, control of South America to get their resources, get their oil, and get whatever allies we can. Because Colombia and Brazil will probably be on our team.